gather information to plan their trip, or is it only the last mile when it comes to the booking?
I think it's definitely a bit of both. We don't have great data today, and I can't share with you. We are a platform for you to come and book, so we do tend to see the last mile of the booking actually happening on Agoda more often than not. But I think we also see a lot of engagement for just things, and reviews have been left by different customers who have stayed at those properties, creating reviews for activities where we've built out that funnel of our business. So I think it's definitely steering more and more towards more engagement, and I think we'll only see that translated more time spent on digital realms, whether they are on OTA platforms. To go, how do I want to plan that trip, and can I do it all in one seamless experience?
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dayal, before we move on to the rest of the panel, which is more to do with on-ground experiential tourism, I wanted to understand that besides social media, are there any other discovery platforms where, specific segments of audiences you interact with? Like, for example, for Gen Z or somebody who's slightly younger, social media works best. But somebody who is from the HNI segment trusts a lot more on their travel advisors. So which ones, according to the three of you, works best for smaller travel organizations who are boutique for that matter, but also are more working on word of mouth? If you can just highlight a little bit more.
That's very interesting. Thank you. First of all, it's wonderful to be with such a young, eclectic, and energized group of people. There's a new world emerging. This itself reflects the new way of travel. Having said what you did, that one's been here for 3 decades, really doesn't mean anything, because what I learned from this panel is far greater than all the 3 decades. But I tell you, the name of the company that we started or founded was Anecdotes. And Anecdotes itself means storytelling. You talked about online, and that's the first place, and absolutely you're so right. Online, and it's digital, and so, and that's the emotive angle, or really the engagement as we call it. The kind of customers that today we see, or I would rather use the word, we never call them customers, we call them guests actually. And I think that's what they really are. We never call them by any number. We don't know numbers. We know names actually. So it's all about making meaning, memories and moments. It's transformation travel more than anything else here, truly speaking. There's a lot being said on social media, digital, and all that we see everywhere. And that's a good way to start, and you get yourself well-informed, exposed, and made aware. The best way to describe it is someone was telling me, and one of our storytellers, are you a guide? Are you a storyteller? I'm a cultural anthropologist. I'm a cultural anthropologist. How would you like to go on a trip to a beautiful temple, be it in Khajuraho, be it wherever, and have your trip leader, as you call it, or a guide, or a cultural anthropologist, perform the dances that are sculpted. A lot of this we've seen after COVID. The guests that we have are very well read, and most of our guests across as we see in the audience, we've had three, four, you can say extremely well on destinations. So you better be well informed and on top of it. It's not about numbers. And we are not in the numbers game, and I think those looking for experiential travel should consider themselves to be fortunate, because it's really like reliving, re-energizing, rejuvenating, both engaging with the guests.
Thank you everyone, and thank you for, to both Gaurav and Sandeep ji to highlight certain things. So we run a company called Bucket List Experiences, and just to answer your question, I think primarily a lot of travelers have, online is one thing, social media to discover where experiences could be found. But in our experience, what we have understood pre-COVID and post-COVID, of course, the travel game has changed a lot. And we see a lot of people working. So we have something called as experiential communities. So we have an experiential community purely for, say, architecture or heritage. And we have like a food experience community. We have an events experience, sports experiences communities. And like-minded people come and be a part of those communities and go for experiences together. And this could be not just pan-India but global audience. And then we have like a quarterly events where we engage all these communities with each other. So somebody who is a part of a sports community finds interest in a food community and say, I would like to go on a food experiential tour. And I think, as travel service providers, experience providers, our job is to only connect the audience. There's so much information, so much data available online. There is limited contribution in terms of content that you could do. So the engagement has to be community engagement, making travelers meet each other. And I think that's like a big segue into moving into more experiential things for them.
I love the way you put it. So, community equals content equals commerce is the module that Mr. Gujral is following, especially when it comes to experiential travel. Gaurav, if you may.
Thank you. I mean, it's a pleasure to be a part of such a learned panel and a great event. I would say, like, I'm aligned with Baljeet on this one, and as an extension of it, what I have seen is that particularly people are looking forward for travel counselors or travel mentors, I would say, either in form of a community or in form of your trusted travel partners, because essentially this is something which I experienced when I started back in travel in 2009. Right, starting from then till 2014, I had my own travel venture which was into OTA and curating experiences. And even though I left the venture and it was just like we switched on to the other one, but still, even after a couple of years, in every circle, there is that trusted travel mentor or travel partner with whom you are connected with, and either it's in form of a travel company or your own circles and other things. So definitely, that's why I said like what Baljeet mentioned as a travel community is essentially the core of it, because that's what helps to build up a trust, especially when it's something about experiencing the unknown or the unexplored domains of travel, right? You can find a lot of day trips, sightseeing tours and other things, the regular ones. But when it comes to the experiential part of it, that's exactly where we need to build up the trust, because that's completely related to the emotional connect and the reliability which comes onto it.
So we have community is to content is to commerce, and here we have community that builds trust. Because if you're seeing something online, whether you're sure or not, and that's where the word of mouth kind of comes into picture, where you know somebody who's probably been a part of that circle and recommends that as well. So it's word of mouth being played on a macro level. Am I correct in putting that into words?
Yeah, I mean word of mouth or a similar building of trust which you can do via company or just through your known circles.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, since you're talking about trust, I want to move on to our next segment that talks about value. So, of course, we've been able to figure out various products through various channels and mediums, maybe through friends and relatives. You get curious, yes, but what makes them say yes to you from the point of view? Because there are multiple options that are available there in the market. And how do you go beyond price to showcase the real value of an experience? So can you shed some light on that, and then I will come back to you on that as well.
So, I mean, that's
just one more thing that I wanted to elaborate here. If I had to kind of put it into context from an example point of view. So you see, we come a lot of times in front of instances where people are willing to pay a premium when they are talking about traveling internationally. But if the same price point is offered for a trip within India, we might differ a little bit, saying that, okay, no, we are not valuing it at that price point. So how do we bridge that gap?
So, I mean, if we just see that there has been a considerable shift in the way Indians are traveling, either it's domestic travel or international travel in the last 1 decade. Effectively, like at the starting of it, it was about and I would also relate this to the frequency of traveling. Because earlier, traveling used to be a kind of a savings, and that's where like we are going to travel across one distance. A place with our families and friends, then how much can be explored? So it was more about like having a power-packed itinerary, just going around sightseeing and here. So that's exactly where like sightseeing and other things were more prevalent as compared to the experiences or the curated experiences which we speak about right now. However, like with the frequency of travel just going up and also the spending capacity per person has considerably risen experiences or the regular travel is being now substituted in certain forms, in certain travel themes by experiential travel. So, I mean, that was one of the points when people are more willing to spend now on experiences than initially, the earlier years. Now, linking it back to the question where you said that why do people prefer to spend more or they're open to spend more on an international experience vis-a-vis when they're traveling across any other domestic destination. So I think that has to do with a lot of factors around how we as a travel communities are showcasing the experience, because experience is all about creating a perception, creating an emotional connection with them, right? That what is the value they are getting out of it. So unless we actually present to them a very tangible value, which is more like what Sandeep sir mentioned, like a storytelling. And this is where, like, if the experience, I mean, because I've seen local experiences, what we get across in India, even if you go to Jaipur and just for example, you do a kind of elephant bathing tour around it, right? You go to an elephant sanctuary versus when you go to an elephant sanctuary in a place like Thailand or this would Vietnam. That's quite different, and that's not different. It's being organized. That's where it completely links up to that one. So in India, it's more about, yes, we have booked a tour and we're going over there, we'll show you, and it's done. But the other part of it, actually building up an experience, is showcasing about that, and even if they are not, but still they are showcasing that how much care they are giving to the animals and all the other stuff. So I mean, just giving a small example of how communities are really
Forces them to shell out that much more extra, is, if I'm summarizing it correctly.
yes, that's one of the point. And effectively, I think because the curated travel experiences are already being shared and people are paying high premium price for it. So if we see, like, even if we just take an example of Rajasthan, so a local Rajasthani village experience tour is being sold off, and it's being very well taken over by the domestic audience who are willing to pay a premium price about it, because which segment of travelers we are focusing on, that again matters a lot around it, right? For example, if we speak about luxury travelers, so luxury travelers, because they have got these budgets, and when they are booking for these 5 stars and other things, they're willing to pay for these experiences at a much more better rate as compared to conversion rate, what you get. So again, while the luxury travelers have got a plethora of these curated experiential options, I think there's still a lot of room to improvise upon the way we are presenting these experiences for budget and mid-segment travelers.
Thank you. You made a very valid point. That makes me go back to Gaurav. In the previous segment, you mentioned price first discovery. So how do you kind of showcase that value as compared to the price that is being offered on your platform?
Great question. I think we see everything at scale. So my perspective is always a little contrary, a little different. But price is paramount. Strategy in our thinking and our execution. But like you said, once you go beyond price, there are many factors that come into play. I think from an infrastructure standpoint, we spoke about traveling more to tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and the budget-friendly traveler looking for those experiences, but on a smaller budget versus the luxury traveler. I think connectivity is very critical. So, and I will say, I think the government is doing a great job of expanding the reach of airports across the country. We do need more. And we need better rail connectivity and bus connectivity, etc. But I think those things are coming into place. I think it's also very important to have safety concerns taken care of, and I think that's always something we see. So when we look at our inbound travel into India versus domestic travel is growing very fast, but inbound travel isn't being able to keep up pace. And one of the hypotheses as to why it could be concerns around safety. But if we peel the onion even beyond that, I think discoverability is absolutely critical. At scale, it starts with just having options. So the effort we put in is looking at how many properties are we working with directly. How can we enhance the payment experience for them? How can we make sure that they're offering experiences as well as packages at their property on Agoda to all of our customers that are available either everywhere else or exclusively on Agoda as well, so that customers can find them and then eventually book them. And once you go beyond that, then I think it's about the special offers that are available at those destinations, whether it comes to activities that are outside of the property you're staying at, or special activities that the property itself is catering to. I think, for example, you can have an experience at a Rajasthan property, experiencing the food in a place like Jaisalmer, which you wouldn't get otherwise. We've created products and solutions that allow properties to market those at scale. So we have something called Agoda Special Offers, which allows properties to market the offers that are otherwise not visible, otherwise not available and easy to find, but market those to customers while they're going through their booking at that time. And finally, I think it's also very important to, we can't under-index the aspect of payments. Paying upfront for an entire journey, travel itinerary can be challenging. And as we see young travelers, especially Gen Z, and the younger side of millennials, a lot younger than me as well, that are traveling to a lot of destinations, it's not easy to actually find the budget to do so all at once. So having easy EMI options, making sure the ride should go through and the payment shouldn't fail, and that takes a lot of effort as well. So I think getting the basics right is definitely very critical. When it comes to search and discovery at scale, I think it's also important to have contextual search. So we put a lot of investment and are continuing to put investment into contextual search. If I'm searching for this neighborhood in Mumbai, I should be able to find everything around this neighborhood very easily on a is not, but our investment is to make sure that that's true in every case going forward. So you could be trying to actually weave AI into that. So if you think about what AI can do, it can really be an aid, right? It can be your aid when you're searching online to make sure you can find that travel experience that resonates with you. So we have an Ask Me Anything bot on Agoda. You can ask it anything. It's already assisted with more than 30,000 hotel searches. When it comes to marketing as well, AI has a role to play. For example, we ran a campaign fairly recently, earlier this year, with our brand ambassador, Ayushman Khurrana, where he will curate a travel itinerary for you. Now, it's not him, it's of course the AI bot that's doing that in partnership and in collaboration with ChatGPT. But it allowed you as a traveler to really experience what it would be like to have someone recommend a trip for you based on your preferences. Now, my preference could be, I would like to go diving on a budget of less than 20,000 rupees, including flights and accommodation, and I reside in Mumbai. Where is the closest place I can go? What do you recommend? And it'll actually come out with the recommendations for you. So our investment will be in those areas going forward, but again at scale. And I'll again start with, I think for us, everything starts with price. So it is important to go beyond price, but you have to create value with price and then with payment options first.
I love it how you put it. Create value with price so that they find value in the proposition as well. Making it accessible through various payment options so they don't find it very taxing to pay the premium amount, but they do it over a period of time. That's brilliant to be able to attract new travelers as well. Moving on to our next segment, which is of designing these experiences. So I need Baljit to maybe shed some light with your experience in field riders. How do you kind of make your trip as authentic as possible, as personal as possible for the travelers, while also maintaining scalability when you want to look at the end of the day, it's a commercial enterprise. So how do you balance profitability and making sure that the local culture or the local communities are also being benefited?
Yeah, so actually adding on to what Gaurav was saying on pricing bit, I think in the experiential travel domain, positioning plays a very huge role. How do you position your brand? And with positioning, it's very important to build transparency with the customer. So for example, like we have two parts of the business. One is an adventure travel company in Field Riders, where we organize adventure tours on motorbikes, four-wheel drive, expeditions across India and globally. What we do is that it is very imperative for us to bring on the table for the customer what are they paying for and how much of that is going to the community. Because all these places, whether it is Bhutan, whether it is Ladakh, whether it is Spiti Valley, these are very remote places and they are still building up tourism. I mean, like, you can say at one end that Ladakh has peaked, but I still see that there is a lot of potential in terms of what we saw a decade ago when we started and how tourism in these remote places is building. So to bring in that transparency, I think the first thing what we do is we partner with the communities at a very different model, not just having them as co-hosts, but also like, as sir was saying, making them storytellers. And providing experiential at a very surface level. A bit of training that goes in educating them, and the audience who are coming for experiential travel, what is the expectation? And at the same time, we have to educate the travelers as well to respect the local community, to respect their norms, to understand that, how do they operate. Bringing in sustainability, it could be just a statement, but how can sustainable tourism, starting from, maybe even using dry toilets. Yeah? In Ladakh, you still have scarcity of water. So can you build dry toilets? Can you, still have accommodations where there are solar heating systems? So they are, contributing to the sustainability aspect rather than just saying that I'm doing sustainable tourism. Also, I think on the pricing bit, we managed to understand at a very early stage that the travel community is a very, how would I say, aware community. Experiential tourism, you can't charge 3x or 5x the cost. So what we built was, we say that, say, just for namesake, if I'm saying a tour to Ladakh with like a cultural, immersive experience on food, heritage, maybe a week travel is about 3 lakhs. So we actually break it down for the customer, what pricing is going to the company for hotel bookings, for experiences booking, and how much money is actually being passed to the local community. So it's not like we are saying that, we treat them as vendors, we treat them as partners. So we say, okay, if you're going to a local house and having a local experience, and if you're paying 5,000 for this, 3,000 is actually going to the family. So that breakup, then makes them feel that they are totally involved and they are aware that the spend that they're doing on an experiential travel is not just going to the service provider but to the community as well. So I think transparency helps us do better positioning and attract customers and also retain them.
Thank you. So, since you spoke about sustainability and especially in those remote areas, Gaurang, I just wanted to very quickly understand from you, since you've been in the conservative tourism segment, what are these red flags that you identify very quickly to understand that, okay, we should not be doing this because it's going to be damaging, say, the local community infrastructure or even the ecosystem at large. So are there any pointers that you kind of, make sure that you refrain from?
I think before I go into what can be done and what we had been doing, I would just like to connect in the Himalayas like Uttarakhand, Himachal, J&K and even the northeastern states. And that's exactly one of the things is that because they have been grappling with over-tourism, and with that over-tourism, what essentially followed was like a reckless and a ruthless deforestation and everyone just trying to get the most out of what they can fetch from this tourism traveling around things, right? So that's just one of the examples, but we all know that what all other things are being impacted and the billions of dollars of these damage and obviously the lives and of the people have been just derailed around it, right? But so back in 2016 to 2019 when and also the Ministry of Uttarakhand over there, that's exactly where what we did was we spent a lot of time, a couple of months in the Himalayan villages trying to understand that what is it that rather than, because there were two key concerns. One was with over tourism destinations, like the popular destinations were really grappling and everything was being just like taken over by new jams and stuff, which was not at all related to experiences. So how we actually curated this was that actually have a uniform spreading across by building up new destinations. By building up new destinations, sustainability. And when I say in a sustainable manner, it was more about working with the local communities to make them understand that it's not about that selling your land to let's say to anyone will make you rich, but there are also other ways of earning and monetizing tourism, which is in the way of experiential tourism. So that's how we started working on a grassroots level, while it was more about that how do you build up these tourism clusters and on one way
Decentralize
with
from
more
the main
decentralized
hubs.
form of things, and that's where we started forming these tourism clusters with different themes, with different experiences, because the part was on a monetary perspective, how do you maximize the stay of the guest, because the more he will stay, the more he will be spending on experiences. And that's exactly where when you, it was all like we had these communities partner with us, working together, and we conceptualized and could get a 50 crore project approved by the government. Unfortunately, after all these years, this was washed away by COVID and all diverted into this thing. But yes, I mean, that's where we see that with communities, when we are partnering with them and building up the right set of experiences, helping them to rebuild their own homes into a way which can be accommodating to the travelers, rather than building up just fancy hotels and resorts and other things which can take a lot of the sustainability angle out of it. So I think.
Thank you, thank you. I just want to open the panel for this one question, which is, talking about the different segments within it tapped into, but you feel may have some potential maybe 2-3 years down the line. Anybody who would want to chime in to begin with, and then we can move on. Yeah, please.
I would like to really talk about experiences in the way you experience them. And can you hear me now? Yeah. So it's all about feeling that experience.
You'll need to hold the mic when you're,
Right.
So
Sorry about that. So I don't know whether any of us have heard the term slow travel. Now for us, many of us, it means just slow travel, right? That's also a way of doing it. But slow travel was conceptualized in the Maldives by a gentleman of Indian origin, Mr. Shiv Dasani, who probably many of you would know as running the most luxurious hotel in that area. It stands for Sustainable, Local, Organic and Wellness. And this was some time ago, and this was the first trend of what we call experiential travel. Okay? So that's one. I think what is important is to understand travel with responsibility, with consciousness, with a meaningful approach. And I enjoy what you say is community driven. Does the community also stand to gain in that? Because if it is not going to be an inclusive two-way kind of model, then it's only very skewed. Not only that, inclusive would mean all segments, minorities, other genders, and so be whatever, disabilities. And I remember we had created
No, but which one of these segments do you feel have business potential for travel companies that haven't been mapped out yet?
There are a few which have just started, and I remember a few years ago in a different avatar, we started a model called disability travel. Able travel we call it. We never called it disabled travel, where we got people, the guides, to be able to help guests who were either blind or disabled in to be able to describe something, and allowed the opportunity for a complete new vista. Very, very selective, very niche.
So accessible travel is something that you feel has potential.
I mean, it's very selective, very niche,
Right.
but certainly it's inclusive,
Right.
and it should not be in any way left aside.
Of course.
So that's what I want to say. But I want to give one or two examples, if I could. An experience is an example. Experiences come with examples. And I'm going to share some of these, which actually created the experience in me. And some of my colleagues are all here partners, and they must feel the same. We did a trip to Varanasi during Dev Diwali. A lot of people do it. It's very good, and seems to have got very popular in the scheme of things. But our trip started off with evening of Kabir bhajans, right? In a very old Haveli, which is on the banks of the Ganges. So we got everybody into the mood and into the feeling of that experience. As we went off into the morning, onto the early morning Ganga sort of boat ride, which again everybody does, not a problem at all. We stood still in the middle of the river with one of our boatmen who sang beautiful songs of that area. Because apart from being a boatman, he was also a natural singer. So that absolutely mesmerized everyone. When we took a trip to Tanjavur, we had a 3-day all-intensive trip of the temples and everything there. The trip was led by a storyteller who was not just a storyteller, but actually an author. And he'd written 5 books on the Cholas. So it was not talk, it was reading from a book. And in Tanjavur, we met for all those who connected. We met the Prince of Tanjavur, who claimed to be the direct descendant of Chhatrapati Shivaji by lineage. So even for us, it was an experience, right?
Absolutely.
These are small moments which frees you.
So
and it is taking away that in what shapes you for tomorrow.
Absolutely. If I had to summarize it, slow travel and expert-led travel is something that slow travel, accessible travel, and expert-led travel is something that you feel are trends that people can.
I think it's very important to bring an enriching experience.
Right.
If someone should gain. I always say when you travel on a trip, come back intellectually rewarded.
Absolutely.
There's got to be a takeaway. It's not just a touch, it's a feel.
Absolutely.
Wherever, whatever, and however. You know. And so these are small things, and that's what we've learned. And we were doing a lot of volume business, mass business, touch, just like a touch business. There's no feel to it. But after COVID, as you said, it's really dramatically changed.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to see that Goda's doing Goda experiences also.
So if I may pass on the baton to
I think on our side again, taking that perspective of at scale, this year since, and I think everyone is aware, since Mahakumbh Mela, we've seen a huge spike in searches for religious tourism, for pilgrimage travel. So I spoke about Dev Deepavali, it's coming up in November in Banaras, and again, it's one of those experiences that a lot of people strive to go for at least once if they can. We're seeing almost 22% plus year-on-year growth in searches just for religious destinations in India. So I think that's a trend that's here to stay because it cuts across geographies, it cuts across ages, etc. And it's a secular trend that we seem to be seeing in the data. What we're doing on our side to try and promote those is create more local content, create campaigns, etc. that speak to those occasions so that you can plan your travel in advance and so that a lot of our partners who are not always easily discovered online have a platform to be easily discovered for those specific occasions and those specific itineraries. I think besides that, concert travel in India is also on the rise. We've seen that ever since the Coolpay concert, etc. We have more concerts now happening in India with performers from around the world coming here, as well as our own local performers also having bigger stages, bigger venues like the one we're at to perform. And I think we'll see that trend continue because I think the concert phenomenon is still relatively new in India as well as in the subcontinent. For example, Sri Lanka is hosting a large concert at the end of this year, right at the end of the year in December, and they're planning to see about 20 to 25,000 people attend that concert in Colombo. That's the first big concert they're doing after almost 7 years, so probably the largest one they'll do in a decade. We'll see similar trends in India as well, and I think as online platforms, our agenda is to try and make discoverability of those events easier, try and partner with local players as much as possible to make it easier for you to not just find out when the event is happening, but also where to stay, how to get to the venue, etc. And I think we'll see platforms like Agoda do a lot more in that space.
Thank you. Baljeet, very quickly, if you want to touch upon anything on this segment.
Yeah, I think, if I had to use one word where there is potential, I think if we start including learning a skill in any kind of experiences that people start taking, that is a big space which is still untapped. We experimented with it, a few years ago, and I think for travel industry, there's always a big question mark that how are we innovating, because we're still selling the same things for decades and decades. I think unless you include that as like an innovation on your platform, just to give an example, we noticed a lot of adventure tours that we were doing. A lot of men were coming for adventure, and they would have their family members, the women, their mothers, daughters, wives accompanying them, but they wouldn't participate in the adventure. And just out of curiosity, and I always say this, and I think at Agoda, Gaurav would agree that customer obsessiveness is like one aspect that every business should have. And we were so obsessed that why are our customers not engaging? Why are the women customers not engaging? And we started asking them, why don't you participate in the adventure, either driving a car or even a motorbike expedition? And they said, we don't know that skill. We were never taught that. And we took that key and we actually built a motorcycle coaching academy for women, where we just train women, come learn a skill of riding a motorcycle and start participating on tours with your, better halves. Now that makes it more engaging for the family to come and actually experience adventure, and not just a certain set of the family to participate and the other being audience to it. So I think unless you are getting your customers involved and making them learn a skill, and that skill could be anything. I'm just giving an example of motorbike, but it could be any skill that they come on a vacation, learn a skill and go back. It is more transformative for them in the long run, that they have the memory that they learned a skill at a vacation and not just indulge in an experience.
That's brilliant. So you actually opened 50% of your audiences to kind of come and participate with you in your further expeditions,
I
and
hope so, yeah.
simultaneously structured a whole new revenue model for the company. That's awesome.
So, I mean, being an engineer myself, I believe in the power of technology, how it's going to shape up the future of experiential travel. Because when we speak about experiences, it's more about, we always speak about immersiveness, immersive experiences around it, right? And just bringing a spotlight into our tourism. Average, the cost of running a single tourist information center is just close to around 60 to 70 lakhs per year, and we have hundreds of them in every state. So going with a paper-based, those brochure-based tourism with the key itineraries. So that's exactly where we had worked towards and then developed these destination discovery solutions. And because I come from an aviation background, so we said that airport is the first entry point to the destination, or at least the major one. I'm just excluding the other parts of it, but for all the not so cost sensitive travelers, most of the times for a time conscious travel, they're using airports as a mode of transport. And that's exactly where we develop these immersive VR, AR based walkthrough experiential discovery platforms, which will be used by different ministries of tourism. So any state can use that particular airport. Let's say if I'm just flying to Guwahati from Mumbai airport. So with that walkthrough tunnels and the other things, you can just encode and then give them an immersive experience. Not that they have to specifically go to a kiosk and key in over it, but it's more like the tunnel through which you enter an aircraft, developing these kind of destination discovery solutions, which helps to create awareness and promote them on a much larger level, because it's more like feel it, see it before you experience it.
On the topic of loyalty and retention, right? Sorry if I'm skipping you on this, but traditionally loyalty programs are built on price modules or
online, in airlines, and everything. But I think loyalty also comes with emotive engagement, with connecting from the heart and connecting people to people. And more important, in terms of the value that the customer or the guest sees in the experience that you're going to give, be it in all that I've just described, or so much more that we can add. Truly, if you look at it, it's not just, I mean, there are scales of it, and depending on the scalability that you want. If you want it intimate, more personalized, more custom-driven. I came across a travel company, which I don't know them, but I was seeing them very active and heavily, sort of aggressively presenting themselves. They're a company run by a young group of ladies, young girls, focusing on South Asian community. You know, there's a whole lot of South Asian community in the UK and America who are all their second, third generation. They don't know each other, right? I mean, they don't know, they won't come from their parents and grandparents, but they want to get to know each other. There are other ways of trying to build that community. This agency focuses only on that community, all on social and creating that kind of emotive engagement, that you're going to meet like-minded people, people who came from the land of Mahatma Gandhi and stuff like that. So, you know, there's so many things happening, so rapidly changing, that price is a factor, yeah, but sometimes my best experience may not be just price. It just could be standing still and enjoying that very moment and freezing that moment. Absolutely. And that's the takeaway for me.
Thank you. Thank you. So, emotional connect and also to a certain level, multi-generational travel to induce coming back to the same service provider, like maybe build exclusivity in terms of the service that you're providing. So, thank you. Baljit, if you may, very quickly, if we can.
Yeah, very quickly, in 30 seconds, I will sum it up, not taking much of time. So, I agree to what Sir was saying. People matters a lot. I think making travelers feel that they have a tribe is so beyond community. People still find communities elsewhere, but they don't find a tribe. So build that, mechanism and a platform where they connect with each other beyond travel and feel like a part of the tribe. That will bring in customer loyalty. Just to sum it up.
Thank you. Thank you. Gaurang, if you have anything to add to this.
I think that sums up to saying that yes, what travel companies do is that we sell dreams, right? Because vacation is the most beautiful part, what someone wants to live through. And that's exactly where the first time customers, while you can get them with a way of storytelling, compelling itineraries and also the cost part of it. But the second time and further on, they will only travel with you once they have a good experience to turn them into loyal customers, right? Because once you're selling dreams, then it's not just about the cost, it's also about a variety of different factors which will be comforting to those who are seeking experiential travel once they have already done with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to be opening the floor for any audience questions. Are there any questions? Well, that was a very self-explanatory panel. Yes. Can we have a mic over here, please?
Hello. Hello. Good afternoon. So my name is Vaishnavi and I had this very simple question to ask. First of all, very nice insights on the session. So my question is, see, in these terms when we're talking about loyalty for our customer base, how do we process about dynamic pricing? Because when we have holidays, everyone is looking for ease of comfort of booking and all, but we also have dynamic pricing being applied that time. So how do we make sure that loyalty is also being followed along the same?
I can take that from the Agoda perspective, but as I mentioned earlier, what we try and optimize for is making sure that customers are able to find the best price possible on Agoda. And that usually means, in more cases than not, that if the price doesn't work, for most customers the price will drop. So that's the way we look at pricing. We also work very closely with our hotel partners across India to run campaigns whenever there's an occasion. So we spoke about a lot of the religious festivals, including Deep Deepavali, for example. We would usually start working ahead of time with partners in those markets to make sure that we can offer the best price possible. But yes, as you rightly said, dynamic pricing does kick in. Usually when the availability has gone down tremendously. I'm eager to hear how you look at dynamic pricing in your field, because it's fairly different when you're planning full itineraries and experiences.
Baljit, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so I think for us it becomes much more easier because the dynamic pricing doesn't play a part when you're playing it with a HNI, Ultra HNI customer, which is our target customer. They are looking at more value at the end of the day. They don't mind spending a little more. So dynamic pricing then just kicks off. But again, to answer your question, I think as long as your positioning, which I was talking earlier, the brand positioning and the value proposition that your platform offers can counter dynamic pricing in some way. But at the end of the day, we are in a price-sensitive market. There is a lot of competition, and I wouldn't say that that doesn't play a part. It plays a part. So yeah, choose your audience and try to make them stick to your platform.
Excuse me, can we have the mic over here, please?
Hello, I'm Manish, and my question is about the learning experience. You said that to learn a skill, so that opens up, that I bring a new dimension to that, which I think none of the session has tackled, that is the student travel. The high school students and the college students. maybe the MBA student going to Silicon Valley for some immersion, or maybe high school student going to Singapore for some best of the sustainable practices and all that. So if anybody has more insight as far as the Indian scenario is concerned.
So what is your question exactly? Are you looking at?
So how to take it forward from the learning skills to actually how those can be applied to the educational travel for the students, taking one step further.
So I'll give you an example the other way around. In fact, quite interestingly, we've just got a request from an Australian company, called Australian Travel Advisor. We call our members of our team curators. But the request was, we've got a bunch of kids, or 20 of them, who wish to make a trip of India, focusing on ancient Indian history. Right? Focusing on ancient Indian history. And not just about looking at monuments. It's what we call outdoor learning. So before even we attempted to get back to the person who made the request, we must have approached a large number of historians, as professors, university, all kinds of places at university, to get the detailing. And we are talking of kids, we're not talking of. Had frequent requests from American universities coming to India. When I say they come to India, Harvard University, lots of other universities, Michigan State. I mean, personally, I've had the privilege to handle some universities where they've designed a full out-country semester learning. Which relates to their subject. In this case, it was hospitality. So they took over the Shiv-Nivas Palace in Udaipur for a period of 2 weeks and converted it into a university, right? And they got the best professors. When I say professors, practicing professionals, all heads of the leading hospitality companies, coming in to take sessions, flying them in, flying them out. And the host and custodian was, at that point of time, the Shriji of Udaipur. So, I mean, these are all experiences, aren't they?
How much is outbound from India? This is all inbound.
Yeah, outbound is something which has to be researched, of course. If you've got students wanting to do Silicon Valley, or you'd start working with the Institute of Federation of Industries, related Chamber of Commerce, Indian Embassy. You've got to really create that experience.
I would like just to add a little bit to this. I think your primary customer will always be educational institutions. The reason with you go to them is probably going to be your selling point. So for example, if you are targeting a fashion institute, then your product needs to be tailored to somewhere around Italy where fashion is a big industry. So anything to do with education has to do more with industry exposure and maybe tailor your itineraries based on that. There are a few companies in India who are already doing this on an outbound scale. One is Koh Adventures, KOH, but they are more to do with adventure travel and life skills more than anything else. Then you have all of these international schools which are already present in different metros in India who have their own in-house travel program. So maybe you can look at it from the point of view of being an execution partner for them, not just necessarily creating a whole new product. So it becomes white labeling to a certain extent, but that is one way that you could probably look at approaching this. Yeah. We have time for just one more question. If you put your hand up, after this I'll just...
Okay. Hello, hi. My name is Samarth Srivastava and I am a soft skills trainer. This is my first ITB or any travel convention. I am trying to find out how I can contribute to the travel industry. So my question is, as we all have talked about experiential travel very much, travel and tourism is very different, right? I have traveled, I have been to trips, bike trips, I have went on mountains and spent time with mountaineers, and I have been on organized trips. So as travel industry leaders, how do you balance that tourism versus travel, that experience, as you said, sir, that the boat person singing wonderfully and the author telling stories about places. Also, how do you find those new experiences? And Baljit, you talked about training. So how do you focus on that learning and development training part?
So I think this can be an open-ended discussion that can go on for a very long time. I'm just going to take a moment to kind of summarize this. If you're looking at experiential travel, it has to be slightly longer in duration. You cannot, immersively look at a destination in a short period of time. So that is what tourism is about. As, again, this is a personal opinion, I could be wrong. And when you're talking about travel, that needs to be slightly, you need to give it more time for it to kind of, be one with you as an experience. That is the fundamental difference that I see. Anybody who would like to chime in, please do.
I'll give you just 2 examples. We have very little time. And I told you, experience comes through examples, right? So soon after the COVID, we had a request from 80 very, very senior corporate people. And they were not going to go online or look at something just on the digital front. They wanted to get out. And it's travel, they want to travel also, not a problem at all. And they did a mountaineering trip. You said you're a mountaineer and you like the outdoors. So we did a mountaineering trip, or not a mountaineering, it's a trek. We did a trek in Kashmir, absolutely stunning. But we made it into a storytelling experience over 7 days. And they were, everyone, 6 or 7 of them were managing directors of top global companies, right? But they came back and it's a wow. And guess what? They want to do a reunion or re-alumni kind. So there are ways and means of how you conduct it. But one of my most difficult assignments was, and this is something, he wanted to travel with a bunch of his best friends around the world. A gentleman who owned one of the largest restaurants, luxury restaurants in the world. And he said, I want to come to India, but I want to feel like a Maharaja for 3 days. And you know what, during Christmas. So I want to take over a fort. And that fort must have only 25 rooms and nobody else has to be there. And I'm going to be the Maharaja of that fort and call myself that. So that was his idea of presenting himself. It took me about 6 months to design that trip. It's not so simple because I had to get a fort with 25 rooms, speak to the real Maharaja and tell him you're not going to have any guests. And for those 3 days you sort of become the silent wonder around. But the reality is people are looking for this. They're looking for travel which combines the special zing and which brings that experience which you see behind, from products to experiences. So wherever, whatever and however we do things, we need to bring that special effect. So when you open the bottle, you cork it, the fish comes out. In a very simple way.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for summarizing it properly.
I just want to add one little anecdote.
Sure, please. We're already running late, so...
I'm a partner at Anecdote, so I want to just add. Tourism is a science. Travel is an art.
Yes, summarized very well.
Thank you, thank you. So that'll be all from our end. This was a very interesting session. Thank you everyone on stage here. Thank you for the audience for their time. We'll bring a round of applause for our panelists here and we'll stage for the next session.
Thank you everyone. Thanks.
Thank you to all our panelists for sharing their valuable insights.